Good afternoon, everyone. My name's David Chadwick. I'm the chair of the Eastern Branch of the Pipeline Industries Guild. It's my pleasure to welcome you here today to today's webinar. Can I ask you to please mute your mics and turn your cameras off, which I notice pretty well everyone has done, so thank you very much for that. We'll be posting, can you post any questions on the chat line, please? And we'll pick those up. I will pose those to Alexa at the end of the presentation. It's possible that we may not, any questions that we're unable to answer by the end of the session, because we are in quite a tight timeline, need to finish by 1 o'clock, then we can get answers back to you, but I'm sure we'll be able to answer all of those anyway. So without further ado, I'd like to ask Alexa to give her presentation. Over to you, Alexa.
Great, thank you very much, David. So hi everyone. So yeah, I've been invited today to talk to you about the Lincolnshire Reservoir development. So I have a presentation to give. It should take no more than 30 minutes to go through my slides, so plenty of time for any questions at the end. But I will, and I'm very happy to take away any questions, as David said, and that come back to you afterwards if needed. So my name's Alexa Sherry. I'm the project manager for the Lincolnshire Reservoir, and I've been working on its development now for about 3.5 years. Just a bit of background about myself. So I'm a chartered engineer. And I've been working in and around Anglian Water for around 15 years now. So I've experienced working for consultants, contractors, and now the clients. And one of my more exciting experiences during that time was working on in the management team of the design and construction of our Hull water treatment works near Lincoln. And in fact, I did actually host a Pipeline Industries Guild tour there about 8 to 10 years ago, so I might have met some of you then. So Hull was a great project to work on. It was really innovative. It was a spotlight project for Anglian Water at the time. It was £45 million it cost, and it was designed, constructed and commissioned in a one 5-year investment period. Comparing that now to the project I'm working on now, Lincolnshire Reservoir, really exciting. It's even more exciting. It's a mega project at over £2 billion estimated cost, and it's going to take us another 17 years to design, construct and commission this reservoir. So a really exciting project to be a part of and to tell you about today. So just in terms of what I plan to talk about then, so I'm going to cover why the reservoirs are needed, an overview of our site selection process that we followed to identify our preferred site, some details of our preferred site and what the reservoir could look like there, and then some details on the work that we've done so far. So as I said previously, this should leave plenty of time at the end for any questions you have. So why do we need a new reservoir? So Anglian Water's region is unique. So it's low-lying and it's one of the driest in the UK. We have 1/3 less rainfall than the UK average, and that makes us particularly vulnerable to climate change impacts. Our region is one of the fastest growing in the country, so we have 175,000 new homes predicted for the next 5 years, and we're estimating a 20% population growth by 2050. And also we need to protect and restore our environment. So an example, we have a large proportion of the country's chalk streams in our region, and they are some of the planet's rarest habitat, and we need to be protecting them and reducing the amount of water that we are taking from these sources. So as a result of climate change, growth, and the need to protect and restore our environment, we need to be finding more water for our region. And so to help us sort of identify the scale of that need, how much more water we need, and to document how we will manage our supply-demand balance to meet that need, water companies produce something called the Water Resource Management Plans, WRMPs, which many of you may be familiar with. So water companies have a statutory obligation to prepare and maintain WMP, and within this they set out how we'll ensure sufficient water resources to meet the current and future demands of customers over a minimum 25-year period. And these are published on a 5-yearly basis. And we have actually just published at the start of the year our draft WRMP, and that's available on our website should you wish to have a look and find out more information. And the map on the right here, this is taken from this plan. And this is a map of our region split up into areas showing our supply-demand balance. And as you can see, we're predicting the majority of our region by 2050 is in the red. So we need more. We're in deficit in the majority of our region in 2050. So say recently published our draft WRMP. And this image here in the top right, this depicts how much additional need there is in our region. So we need around an additional 500 million litres of water every day by 2050. And you can see how this is broken down on that right scale. So we need an additional 60 million litres per day due to growth, 6 million litres a day due to climate change impacts, 67 million litres per day to ensure that we're resilient to a 1 in 500 year drought, and about 350 million litres per day to protect and enhance our environment. And then the scale to the left, this shows how we're planning to meet our demands. So we've got there at the top, 64 million litres per day is going to be met by demand management options. So that means us further reducing our leakage and rolling out initiatives to encourage people, to encourage our customers to be using less water, such as using smart meters, for example. And then we have 110 million litres per day that's going to be achieved through 2 strategic reservoirs, one of which I'm here to talk to you about today. And then that remainder, the 213 million litres per day, is going to come from other options that we're currently exploring, such as water reuse and desalination. So really just to highlight that the reservoir is not our only solution to address the need for the region. We need a combination of options. And then this is shown on the left in a map form, so you can see more detail there. And in the middle there, you can see the Lincolnshire Reservoir in the yellow box, and the Fens Reservoir, which is just near Chatteris in the blue box there. Okay, so yeah, I mentioned at the start that the Lincolnshire Reservoir is a mega project, costs estimates at £2.3 billion. It's going to take another 17 years to develop and construct. And our Fens Reservoir, it's similar. And it's been over 50 years since Anglian Water have developed a new supply option of this scale. And Anglian Water aren't unique in this. We need more water nationally, and there is this need for water companies to develop much bigger solutions than we have done for some time, and to find new ways of doing some things. And because of this, there's a number of these significant strategic options being developed across the country by a number of water companies, and these are called strategic resource options, or SROs. You'll discover there are a lot of acronyms in this project in my slides, so hopefully I clarify them all. But and on this map here, you can see the Lincolnshire Reservoir is shown in red, and also the Fens Reservoir is there in pink. And there is also another reservoir that's being developed in Oxfordshire, which was called the Abingdon Reservoir. It's now being called Cesro, and that's in that sort of yellowy circle there on the map too. So I think there's around 18 of these solutions currently being developed by water companies, and to oversee and to govern the development of these options, a group has been established called RAPID. That stands for the Regulators Alliance for Progressing Infrastructure Development. And that's made up of our 3 regulators, Ofwat, the Environment Agency, and the Drinking Water Inspectorate. And the purpose of this group is that it seeks to improve regulation and remove barriers to help the water sector respond to long-term water resources challenges. And as part of this, we've been allocated funding for development of these options, and a gated process has been established for these solutions to go through. So basically, external milestones have been designed to ensure that our funds are being spent on time and to quality standards. And we have now gone through 2 of these external gates. So we went through gate 1 in July 2021, and that was where we had to demonstrate that the solution was feasible. And then we went through gate 2 in November 22, end of last year, when we had to present our preferred site and also our initial concept plan and the direction that we were taking. And so for each of these, we submitted and published reports, and these are available on our website should you wish to read any more information about the project afterwards. So yeah, I mentioned this. So the need for these reservoirs, this has been identified through our WRMP, and modelling as part of that process, that's stipulated the key parameters that for the project to deliver. So these are captured here. So the reservoir must hold a volume of 55 million cubic meters of water, which is quite a big number to try and comprehend. So try and make that something a bit more relatable. I'm not sure this helps, but that is equivalent of 20,000 Olympic-sized swimming pools, or something like 700,000 double-decker buses. As I say, I'm not sure that really helps, but alternatively, if you know our other reservoirs, it's similar size, slightly smaller to the reservoir that we have at Witham. And I think it's about a third of the size of the Rutland Reservoir. So it's about surface water areas, it's approximately 5 square kilometre. It's been identified that sufficient water is available from the River Witham to fill the reservoir, and with a backup transfer from the River Trent to ensure the resilience of this reservoir. And the output of this reservoir is modelled to be 166 million litres of water per day, which is enough to supply 500,000 homes. And we know that we need this water in supply by 2040. And these are the parameters that we're working for the development of this reservoir. And the Fens Reservoir has similar parameters. So it's a similar size, but with a smaller output and a shorter construction period as well. So we are aiming to have the Fens Reservoir in supply in the mid 2030s. So the first step in the process for the developing of this reservoir was to identify a site for the reservoir, which I'm sure you can imagine is a really complex process. So we completed a multi-stage process, and this has taken us more than 2 years to complete to identify a location that would be suitable for hosting a reservoir. And through this process, we've also sought to minimise impacts to the nearby areas and communities, and also meet planning and regulatory frameworks. So we searched across a broad area, as you can see on the map on the right there, and we identified over 100 potential locations for the Lincolnshire Reservoir at the start of the process. And we've assessed the performance of these sites against a range of factors. And at each stage of the process, we screen sites out, and then those taken forward, we assessed again in much more detail. One example criteria, geology, it's a very important criteria at every stage of the process. And then as we entered our final stage of the process, we had a shortlist of 4 sites that left to analyse, and those are shown in blue on the map on the right. So as you can see, it's still spread out across our region. And the criteria assessed during this stage included environment, carbon, landscape, economic, engineering, people and community, and wider benefits, as you can see there on the left. So we held a series of workshops with our stakeholders. So we worked really closely with a group of stakeholders from the start of this process. And we had a series of workshops to really look at these shortlisted sites in terms of what the benefits each of them could bring to not just the local area, but to the wider area and the region. So our preferred site that we identified outperformed on the majority of the criteria that we assessed. And it was also considered to have a greater opportunity for wider benefits, sort of going beyond public water supply. And so, you know, providing benefits to the regional economy and also to neighbouring communities. So where is the reservoir? So the output to our long, robust, multi-stage site selection process identified a site just southeast of Sleaford, which is just north of the A52. If you know the area, that's between the villages of Screddington, Helpringham and Swayton. If you don't know the area, it's sort of equidistant between Grantham and Boston and between Lincoln and Peterborough. So what you can see here on this map, the pink area here, this is what we've called our polygon. This is the area that has gone through this robust site selection process. And it is within this area that the reservoir and its embankments will be located. So just touching on that, so the reservoir will be an embanked reservoir as opposed to an impounded reservoir. And that basically means that we'll be excavating out from the middle of the reservoir to build up the banks to contain the water, rather than damming existing watercourses like we've done elsewhere at Rutland Water, for example. And then the grey area on the map, this basically recognises that we will need to do a lot of mitigation works and have additional infrastructure for such a large project. And it's a bit of a conservative estimate really around what we think we might need at this stage for landscaping, environmental enhancement, access roads, treatment works potentially, and other associated infrastructure, visitor centres or education centres, for example. So the Lincolnshire Reservoir, it's key to securing public water supply for future generations. As I've said, we really need this extra water, and we believe the Lincolnshire Reservoir, is definitely needed for future generations. And we believe that both our reservoirs, so Lincolnshire Reservoir and the Fens Reservoir, have the potential to achieve so much more than just public water supply. So this is our wider vision. So our vision for the projects go beyond just building a reservoir. We want to create a place where water, people and nature come together. And that means creating space for wildlife, such as wetlands, alongside enabling new recreational and educational activities and natural places for people to explore. And it also means creating new jobs and providing opportunities for local businesses and tourism. So the project could house areas such as a wildflower meadow, for example, for biodiversity gain. We could have wetland habitats within the reservoir for our wildlife. There could be outdoor swimming facilities or water sports or sailing. And hopefully it's going to be a place where the community want to come together in an outdoor environment, or local children can come and learn at an education centre. And so, yeah, the employment and enrichment opportunities that could be made available by these reservoirs, by Lincolnshire Reservoir as well, could provide really genuine value to the local community. So we identified our preferred site last summer, and then from there we needed to produce an initial concept plan. We needed to produce that to submit as part of our Gate 2 submission, so that our regulators could see the progress that we'd made, but also to take to our first public consultation, which we went through last autumn. So the purpose of this was really to demonstrate what we thought could be done on the site, and to generate discussion and feedback in terms of what people really wanted to see from the reservoir. So it's only very high level, it will change, but we wanted, just to really show what we thought our vision actually could look like on the site. So you can see here, I'll try and use this cursor. So we've got education centres. So we're showing education centres, we're showing visitor centres, we've got additional sort of connectivity accessibility with footpaths and cycleways. We've also showing renewable energy, so for example solar being one option for our site, biodiversity opportunities, and then also potentially wetlands within the reservoir. We've also identified potential opportunities for sustainable transport at this site. So there is this existing railway line that goes north to east along the site, that we're looking at. Is there a potential there to bring in a siding and to use that railway line, not just during construction, but also as part of the long-term plan to enhance the connectivity of the area, and also a number of existing watercourses, and we're looking at the potential to connect into these existing watercourses for construction, and also numerous other benefits. So just fine. I guess this concept plan, it's illustrative only, and it has purposely been produced in this way just to really highlight that we are at that early stage in our design process, and at this stage nothing at all is fixed apart from our site selection, which we are committed to, and we are really confident that we have the right site. I mentioned earlier that the reservoir will be embanked, but our vision for this is very different from what you might picture when we say an embanked reservoir. So this reservoir is going to have an earth embankment around the perimeter, and the design will be based on a cut-fill balance. So basically what you dig out from the middle, you use to build the embankments. And we believe this is possible at this site with minimal need to import any structural materials for the reservoir embankments. And also due to the geology, there won't be a need for a membrane or a liner for the bottom of the reservoir. So although it is an embanked reservoir, we are really committed to designing this as sympathetically as we can to fit in with the existing landscape as much as we possibly can. For those of you who don't know the area, the site is slightly undulating. There is a hill to the northwest of the site, but that sort of typical flat fenland landscape is just to the east of the site, and you can see it from high points around the reservoir site. So this is our initial concept plan, which we presented during our consultation, and this is allowing for an average of a 1 in 10 slope. And this is currently based on a maximum embankment height of 20 metres, which is what this image here is based upon. So you can see that we want it to be as accessible as possible. So we have a series of multi-user footpaths going up the slopes. We have vegetation, so small hedgerows on the slopes, and then in the non-structural sort of part of the slope, we can have higher trees and more screening to try and incorporate it within the landscape. So when we talk about the Lincolnshire Reservoir project, it is more than just a reservoir. So the actual £2.3 billion that I referenced, that includes much more. We need to construct an abstraction point from the River Trent, which in itself is a really complex piece of engineering. We then need to we're likely then to need some initial treatment to mitigate the risk of invasive non-native species travelling between watercourses. We'll need a transfer from there to the River Witham. We will then need an abstraction at the River Witham and another transfer to take the water to the reservoir. And we are currently investigating the opportunity as to whether we can use existing watercourses where possible instead of pipe transfers upstream of the reservoir. So can we use open channel transfers instead of pipe transfers to bring the water from the Trent to the Witham and from the Witham into the reservoir? And obviously there are many benefits in doing this. And our stakeholder group are also very enthusiastic for us to do this, but there are also many complexities too, as I'm sure you can imagine, and we are currently analysing the pros and cons for both options. So we also need to have somewhere to treat the water, so we'll need a water treatment works, and that's looking at about 190 million litre per day throughput, so a significant sized treatment works. A new service reservoir, so that will be a new contained reservoir to store the treated water, and then we'll need an additional transfer to take that water into supply. So the pipelines and transfers alone are significant. So as approximately 100 kilometres of pipeline or transfer in total, and in places, the majority of places, that's over a metre diameter. So these are big transfers we're talking. So again, a significant project in its own right. And so I've mentioned that our vision is for this reservoir to provide many more benefits than just public water supply. So there are a series of benefits the reservoir could deliver to sort of the immediate vicinity, such as recreation, environmental enhancement, education, socioeconomic, as I've previously mentioned. But there are also wider benefits that the development of this reservoir could enable. And we believe that this reservoir really has the potential to contribute to a much wider picture, much wider benefits for the East of England. And through partnership funding, through working with stakeholders, we think we could make a difference. We could design this reservoir to enable sort of a difference to be made on a much greater scale. For example, benefits we're investigating here, so storing carbon, so can we remove carbon dioxide from the atmosphere by creating woodlands and restoring peatlands, flood protection, additional biodiversity net gain, so enhancing the environment. We're also looking at agricultural benefits, such as soil health improvement, agricultural water storage, hydroponics. What could be done there, sort of linked in with the reservoir? What could the reservoir enable to happen elsewhere in the area? And we're also looking at improving connectivity as well. So I've mentioned we're looking at and designing multi-user footpaths across our site, but can we connect those up to existing footpaths, cycleways, bridleways, just to really enhance the connectivity of the area? So I mentioned at the end of last year, we went through our public consultation. This was our first non-statutory consultation. And during this stage, we asked for feedback on the site. So the polygon, the pink area that I showed in the map, and also the surrounding area, the grey area. So we were seeking feedback from the local community and what they knew about those sites. And we also presented an initial concept plan. So that the initial concept plan that I've presented for comment and discussion. And we had a series of events, in-person events, webinars, and we had really good attendance. So we had over, we had 892 people attending those events. We had 30,000 visitors to our website, and we had over 300 submissions back from people. So people were really engaged with this process. And then in terms of sort of responses that we received, so people really keen about sort of ensuring there's that connectivity with nearby communities. So, you know, ensuring existing routes between communities and also creating new ones. Really keen on the visual impact of the reservoir. I think there was a bit of concern when people first heard it was an embanked reservoir, that it was going to be a wall around in a generally quite a flat area. So people are really keen that we ensure that this reservoir is visually appealing and keeping with the local character, as I've said, which is what we're committed to do. They're keen that we support local industry, so working with farmers and farming organisations to explore opportunities to support agriculture, and we have been doing that. We've established a local farming group that we've been working with as part of our stakeholders to look at the opportunities that this reservoir can bring. Access to nature and water, so they're wanting green space and countryside to be enjoyed by all, wildlife and nature, so protecting existing habitats and wildlife alongside enhancement. So as I've said again, that's all part of what we were hoping to achieve as well. So it's great that the community and the responses to our consultation are also sort of seeing the same thing. And outdoor recreation, so people wanting this reservoir to create new and accessible leisure and recreational facilities. So if you'd like to see more details of our consultation, so all of the documents and more detail around the feedback that we received is all still available on our project website, which is linked at the top there, so linksreservoir.co.uk if you want to see more. And then just in terms of our time frame of the project, so I mentioned that the reservoir needs to be in supply by 2040 as modelled through the Water Resource Management Plan process. And although this is an ambitious timeline for this scale of project, we are sort of currently on track to be in supply between 2039 to 41. So, as I just mentioned, we went through our first consultation autumn last year, and we are planning 2 further rounds of public consultation. So one next year, and then another one in 2025. So there'll be plenty of opportunity for people to have their say and to influence the project development. In 2025-26, that's when we will be submitting our planning application. So because of the scale of this project, it's classed as a nationally significant infrastructure project, an NSIP, and because of this we need to go down the DCO route for planning, and that stands for the Development Consent Order. So it's the Secretary of State who will sign off our planning application, not the local authority. So the Secretary of State, they have 18 months in which to review and respond to an application, and therefore we're hoping that we will get a decision on that in 2027. And then once we have that decision, we will have some conditions that we'll need to discharge before we can start on site, but we will also need to complete on our finance contracts. So one thing to note is that this reservoir won't be constructed, owned or operated or maintained by Anglian Water. We're working through what the procurement options are for this, so whether it's a private financier that comes in or whether a new company is established to construct, build and operate, as is what's been done at Thames Tideway, the Thames Water, the big tunnel under the Thames. A new company was developed to construct, own and maintain that. So we're looking at similar options potentially for this reservoir. Either way, this won't be complete until after planning decisions granted, so there'll be a number of activities around that to complete, and then we will also need to be completing on our land purchase, so we won't be financed to be able to fund the purchase of land until this time. So all going well. We should be able to start on site 2029, 2031. We are estimating an 8 to 10 year on-site programme. So that allows for 6 to 7 years for the earthworks of the reservoir. Obviously, there's a significant amount of muck to shift, so significant time allowed for that. It also allows for 12 to 18 months to fill the reservoir, and that's based on average river levels and things. So hopefully 12 to 18 months to fill the reservoir is a good estimate. And assuming all goes to plan, we should be ready to put the reservoir into supply, let's say 2039 to 2041. But obviously, what I will say, we are at the early stages of this process, and this programme at this stage is indicative only, and it is likely it may change as our proposals develop. So I think that's the end of my slides. So I guess over to you for any questions, and if there's any I can't answer, I'm very happy to take them away and respond afterwards.
Thanks very much, Alexa. We do have a number of questions now, and I just need to go to the top of the chat list to come to them. The first one's, well, one I posed myself actually. Is there a feeling now that because of the hot weather and recent so on, and possibly climate change, that there is an greater public acceptance of reservoir, and no doubt perhaps it's also maybe influenced by restrictions in other water companies, and I make the emphasis other water companies, not Anglian. Is there a feeling that maybe the public would accept this better now than maybe a few years ago?
Yeah, yes, potentially. I mean, as part of this project, we have, as you'd expect, we've carried out quite a lot of customer research, and our customers are already they've already shown that they would prefer a reservoir to other options such as desalination or reuse, because I think that's that understanding of the reservoirs can bring so much more. So volume of water and a greater level of resilience, and the environmental opportunities and recreational opportunities they can bring as well. And I think also, obviously, people experience our other sites, so Rutland Reservoir, Grafham Reservoir, and see what amazing places they are. So I think our customers have always been quite up for new reservoirs in general. That said, with any new construction infrastructure project, there's always going to be some nervousness around what it actually means and the impact it has on the area, and we have experienced that. And I think yeah, I do think the weather and actually the reality that we really do need something soon is definitely yeah, come about, and people are coming round to it more in those areas. Does that answer your question? Is that okay?
Thanks very much. That's very comprehensive. Yeah. Another question now from Daniel Thompson. So is this a non-impounding reservoir, i.e. pumped flow and its own surface area as the catchment?
Yes, so it's non-impounding. It is yeah, embanked reservoir. So we will be bringing the water through from the Witham, so it will be pumped from the River Witham, and capturing it within the embankment confines, if you like. We're also looking at the opportunity to bring in the more immediate sources when there are flood events and things, to be able to capture that within the reservoir too. So yeah, non-impounding reservoir. Lovely, thanks.
Next question, which I has been posed, is more of a general one actually. Bahus Sakura has asked, and there actually been several answers on this, so I think it's already been answered, but are there any reservoirs in the UK also used for energy generation rather than just drinking water storage? Well, a number of answers have come through, several in Scotland. Another one, yes, predominantly in Scottish and Welsh water. In United Utilities, from Daniel Thompson, we have a few. So I think that's probably answered that one, unless you've got anything you wanted to add.
No more than what you said. No, that's okay, thanks.
Fine. Another question now from Kelly Edwards. What has been the working relationship been like between other water companies and their cooperation? Excuse me, I can't read my screen here. What has the working relationship been like between other water companies and their cooperation to utilise the water for SROs?
So I can honestly say, so really good. Water companies tend to come together and support each other. When we first started the Lincolnshire Reservoir, our original scope was that a third of the water from the reservoir would be transferred to the Affinity Water region north of London. And so initially we were working on this project 50-50 with Affinity Water. So we were funded 50-50 split, and we had to make every decision together. And that worked really well. We worked, the collaboration was brilliant, and we learned a lot from each other. Our water resource modelling process confirmed that actually Anglian Water need to retain that water within our own region, and Affinity Water have chosen other options to pursue. So that relationship has now ended, although obviously it's still close friends amongst that. But yeah, so that worked really well. In terms of the Friends Reservoir, we are currently developing that 50-50 with Cambridge Water, so that they will take a share of the water that's there. So I think that's the whole thing around this rapid process. The way it's been set up for the SROs is that this collaboration, the collaborative approach. There's a weekly meeting where all of the water companies that have an SRO come together and collaborate and lessons learned and share information. So yeah, it's definitely, the relationship's been really good from as far as I've seen in that respect.
Okay, thanks. Another question. I'm just trying to look at these now. Sorry. Yes. Ryan Jones, is the mechanical and electrical element of the project complicated in order to transfer water from extraction to the customer? What is the geology of the area that will require the reservoir not to need a liner? So two questions there.
Okay, so I'm not sure I fully understand the first question. I mean, but in terms of mechanical and electrical, we are at very early stages in the process, so we haven't got to that level of design yet. I'm not sure that David, I suppose you can clarify what you think that's actually getting at.
I think it's essentially that there will be obviously an abstraction potentially from the Trent, but also from the Witham, and then abstracting into the proposed reservoir. I can't see that is much different to what we've done in most areas and most reservoirs, which I'm familiar.
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned Hall right at the start. We abstracted water from the Trent there and transferred it into a much smaller reservoir. But even that, well, it was a very complex piece of engineering, and including the M&E, we had a huge team behind it. So yeah, I'm not sure I fully answered your question, but I think that's probably the best I can give. I
think there will be a lot of M&E needed to be done. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So the second part was about the geology. What is the geology of the area that will require the reservoir not to need a liner?
So there's a good proportion of clay within the area, so we can dig down to get to that clay and then compact it and make it fully impermeable. Again, as we did at our small reservoir at Hall, we were able to compact it, and although it's on a much smaller scale, we haven't needed to bring in a liner for the base of the reservoir there. So.
Okay, thanks. Another question from Chris McNeely. Are the amenity, carbon, biodiversity elements included in the costs? Will these be fundamental requirements of the overall scheme rather than nice to haves? So it's amenity, carbon and biodiversity. Yeah,
so we have included a large proportion of them in the costs. Basically, we wouldn't get a project of this size through any sort of planning without that sort of thing. So we need it included within our costs. We need it included in the design. Even if as a company we didn't want to do any of that stuff, it would be needed. But obviously we're really passionate about doing it and working with others as well to do it. So that a large proportion has been included in the costs, but we're not limiting ourselves there. So as I mentioned, we are looking for partnership funding. So we're working closely with a group of stakeholders to do more. So can we do more to enhance connectivity? So our project won't be funding that, but what can we do with other partners to enable it? So yeah, so the answer is yes, a good proportion of it has been.
Lovely, thanks very much. Another question, well, it's first of all a comment, really interesting project. Will these slides be available after the presentation? Well, I think the answer is that the slides are part of the presentation. The presentation is being recorded and will be available on the Guild's YouTube channel fairly shortly, probably next week sometime. So I hope that answers that one.
Okay.
Right, let's sorry. Oh, roughly another one from Chris McNeely. Roughly how long has it taken to get to this stage?
So the concept of a Lincolnshire Reservoir was in our previous water resource management plan, which was published in 2019. So there were some initial studies done back then to inform that. But really, we've since the start of this AMP period, this 5-year financial investment period, which starts in 2020, that's when the work really started. So we started with our huge to identify our site search boundaries at the start of 2020. So that's when it started, really.
Lovely, thanks. Another question from Ryan Jones here. I think there were 3 pumping stations within the scheme, and I assume they will be electrically powered. Does this mean that the infrastructure of the electrical network needs a major upgrade? If so, will this involve any major service diversions? And then there's a subsequent question. Is there penalty for not delivering by the end of financial year 2041? So 2 questions there.
Okay, all right, thank you.
First one's about the pumping stations, electrical power.
Okay, so again, we are at early stages, so I couldn't tell you how many pumping stations we need at this stage, though that's just a very much as part of our initial estimates, and that's being worked through in terms of when we work out what the routes for our transfers are and where the abstraction points are. That will help inform how many we're going to have. Whether they're electrically powered, again, we need to work that through. We have a huge carbon challenge. We really want to bring down and challenge ourselves on our carbon footprint. So if we can be using renewable sources, and hopefully 10 years time there'll be even more, innovation and new technologies to enable us to do so, we will be pursuing that. So I'm afraid I can't really have an answer for that question at the moment. Will it involve any major service diversions? We do have big overhead power lines crossing the site, our proposed site, so there will be major service diversions through that alone. But yeah, not necessarily associated with the electric for the pumping. And then just in terms of penalties for not delivering, so we so how the funding works, we're currently funded for this 5-year period for the development of the reservoir, and we will get penalties if we don't hit those external milestones or the quality's not in line with what's expected. We currently have no funding at all beyond this period, and so that mechanism, the penalties that might surround that, is not yet been established, but it will be I say a private financier or an independent company that will be doing that build, and we would be imposing penalties on them because we know we need the water for 2040. So that is likely to be part of that agreement.
Yeah, lovely, thanks. Another question here from Philip Paget. Will a reservoir be linked to the new SPA pipeline, Strategic Pipeline Alliance pipeline?
So no, not directly, no. So the capacity of the strategic pipeline has been sized for this investment period, so it's going in now based on what we know we need now. So there wouldn't be the capacity for us to be able to transfer our water through those pipelines, but we will be. The purpose of that strategic pipeline is to ensure the resilience across our region, and so we will be. This will just further enhance that resilience by enabling us to back up that resilience to put the water into supply in other ways and to transfer it across our region.
Thanks. Question here from Amy McFarlane. You said you have 17 years left to design and construct. Was it April 2020 when you started? I think you just answered that a couple of questions
April
ago.
20.
Lovely, thanks. I think that is pretty well the end of the questions now. Oh no, it's not. No.
In screening from the River Trent.
Question. Oh, we have a comment from Ryan Jones. Excellent presentation and really exciting project. Can't wait to follow it through the process. So there's a bit of support and great interest there.
Yeah.
Another comment. Thank you very much for the presentation, Alexa from. Who's that come from? Sorry, I've lost. Oh, from Stuart War. Another one from Amy McFarlane. What is being considered for the in-screening from the River Trent? So that's the non-native and the idea we go transfers across catchments, isn't it? I think
that is the invasive non-native species.
That's it.
So it's currently being worked through the detail of that at this stage. So I haven't got an answer for that at the moment. We took a very conservative estimate for our Gate 2 report, and we did have some details around that in that report, which I haven't got to share at the minute. But if you did want to look at that, you can do. I'm very happy to send a proper answer to that question after this webinar.
Lovely, thanks. So if anyone does want more detail, then contact Guild headquarters, and through Guild we can get that information to you, Amy. Comment Kate Lazenby, Guild Chief Executive, great Executive Director, great presentation. I think very insightful. Another one from Kelly Edwards. Thank you very much. And Philip, and I think the rest are all thanks, and so on. So I think that is the end of the questions. Alexa, it falls to me, to my very pleasant duty, to thank you very much for a very interesting and, as many have said, very insightful presentation. It's interesting when you're working on a project there's such a long time scale, and it's quite thinking 17 years time, but there we go.
So it's a long project, but an exciting one.
It's important that these things are all at least started and get going anyway, looking to the future. Right, so that's the end of the presentation, the end of the questions. My thanks to all. Couple of things, couple of parish notices for the Guild. So look out, next week we have a webinar. I haven't got the details in front of me, but it's again on the water industry, from presentation from gentlemen from WRC. The subject will be combined storm overflows, so very topical, opposite end of the water cycle. So sign up for that if you haven't already done so. And in a couple of weeks' time, on the 18th, we have one of Alexa's colleagues from Anglian Water, George Warren, will be talking about integrated water management. So very much tied in with the sort of information that Alexa's been sharing us with today on water balance, and I'll no doubt be giving us some more detail about how that might be taken forward. So that's the 18th. So please sign up for that if you haven't already done so. I'll at this stage then bring proceedings to a close. Thank you very much again, Alexa, for the presentation. Thank you everyone for attending, and hope you have a good afternoon and the rest of your day. Goodbye.
Thanks very much, everyone. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.